Hey everybody, Viva Khatri here, sitting virtually with Jolene Jangles. And I am super excited to have this conversation with Jolene to talk about her background. She's been in technology, product development, and leadership for 20 plus years and has worked in several different clients and helped work in agile coaching, in agile leadership. I have actually taken some of her agile coaching classes and facilitation classes. So really enjoyed learning from her. And she's actually shown up as a mentor, mostly as a coach, professional coach to me. And so she's got an amazing background, amazing mindset. She is a Brene Brown instructor on top of all the agile coaching books that she does. And is also a founder of a company called Balance Agility. So Jolene, let's kind of dig in deep into your story of coming into Agile. So kind of share with us about your background and what you've been up to.
So I started in IT as many years ago as a developer, and I actually worked for a software company where we sold software, and I worked in a small team, and we did a lot of things. It actually took me years to realize this. We worked so directly with the client, and we did everything, and so we did things in in a very agile way. Way before I learned what the word agile was. But as we got to the next generation product, I was introduced to Agile, and I spent a couple of years developing some of the practices behind that and learning how to move from I moved from my role as a developer to business analyst and then leader, and then I moved into and started working with Target, and I shifted over there as a business analyst and had a nice big failure with a traditional project, and said, well, let's not work that way again. Let's figure out what works for us instead. And this is, a lot of years ago. It's about 2005. And so this is quite some time ago, and wasn't as many agile practices evolved at that point, which was brilliant for me because that meant we had to figure it out. And so we really shifted, and I took what I had learned at the other company and said, hey, here's this ecosystem of a very large company that had a lot of challenges working, and we had this very small, couple hundred people trying to get something done. It doesn't sound small to some people, but in the target system, that was a couple hundred people was not super huge. And let's start
Yeah.
shifting how we're going to do. And so we just had to learn how to do things a different way and really apply it in a system that was not shifting yet. So I
Mm-hmm.
worked in the target system for 9 years, transforming groups about that size, 150 to 300 people, of helping them shift their ways. It took a couple of years per each group because it's not hard. It's not a
Mm.
fast and quick thing to do to help transform them. So as their leader, I was able to shift and move and change them, and always within a bigger ecosystem of Target that for many years was not shifting. And then
Mm-hmm.
towards my end of my time there, they started to all get on board. I felt like I was part of that grassroots movement. So it was pretty exciting.
Nice. Yeah. So then in there, Jolene, you're saying that you are like a people leader, people reporting to you, but you're also leading transformation at the same
Yeah,
time. So wow.
absolutely. Things not working was never a good thing for me. Like this
Mm-hmm.
whole failure rate of projects was never
Mm-hmm.
something that really, when I got to Target and we delivered our first project in our June project in October, we spent $8 million, and 75% of the functionality was never used. That didn't
Yeah.
feel right to me. Like it just said, let's
Yeah.
not do that again. And so I started shifting things so we didn't do that again.
Yeah. Wow. And so you are a people leader, like hands-on, subject matter expert. So a lot of that, and then you actually made a big shift where you kind of went the other side, like emotional agility, working with in the professional coaching environment and working on the trauma healing coaching. Like you've got this whole other side.
So it's not as big as a shift as you think. So I went into computers partially. I originally was going to be a psychology major, and I went into computers because I realized I wasn't going to be able to get my master's before starting work,
Mm,
and computers made more sense to me. But I found very quickly when you work with computers, it's really not about the computers. They are logical, they're clean, they're easy, But you know what? To solve any kind of business problem, it's about the people. It's not about the computers. You can make them
Yeah.
do whatever you want, but you have to find the right thing to do. And figuring out the right business problem is really complicated. Figuring out how to
Right.
make people's lives better is really complicated. And so
Yeah.
I started like way back at the beginning realizing that, this computer profession I thought I was going into, it's all about people too. So then I started gradually moving into that. And so as a people leader and delivery leader is really where I would have put myself a lot of years. A lot of my success was my belief in people, my enabling them to do more. And like I would laugh because I have these huge teams of, a couple hundred people. And
Mm.
some of my bosses thinking I knew all the details. Nope, I just have good people. And so really
Yeah.
enabling and empowering and helping them be successful was the key. And then so when I started shifting into the consulting world, I really wanted to spread. The reason I did that is to start to spread that more, to bring that to as many people as I could.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And Jolene, I mean, I know you personally. I work with you, and you're an amazing training from the back of the room instructor, and you teach an amazing facilitation class, and you do Brene Brown coaching. So that's amazing. So we'll kind of get into that. But whenever I've actually talked to you over the past few years, we talk about agile practices and mindset, and you always make sure to bring it back to agility. So I want people to hear about your take on like agility over just agile.
Yeah. So many of us have seen the Ahmed Sidki's funnel from mindset to practices. And
Mm-hmm.
it starts with a mindset, and it's really about that mindset. And then you have the values, the principles, and the practices. And so
Mm-hmm.
often we get really focused on the practices. Like when clients are, when transformations are happening, companies start to implement agile and put practices in place. And amazingly enough, they don't get any of the results that they want, because it's not about the practices. There aren't any particular practices that really weigh the success or failure of projects or that. It's really more about the mindset pieces. It's really about flexing things. Even in the abundance of Scrum that we have. I think why Scrum is out there so much is there's some really common constraints that we have in IT development, and Scrum fixes a bunch of those, but not all of
Mm-hmm.
those. So when you
Right.
apply Scrum to a problem that doesn't have the constraints that
Mm-hmm.
that Scrum solves, you don't get any better of a result than you had before. And you're doing all sorts of weird practices seemingly for
Yeah.
no reason. So it really is about looking at what's going on and fitting the situation. And there's a whole bunch of amazing practices you can pull from and use. So it's not about, when I say agility, not agile, it's not about discounting the practices, because there's some good ones there. It's about taking on, looking at the situation that you're in, and finding the right practices and things to do and ways of being that fit the environment that you have going on. And that's not
Yeah.
an excuse to not change, because many people try to use it for that. It's like, oh, but
Mm-hmm.
it's working just fine the way it is. And usually it's not. And usually
Yeah.
people know that when they really think about it. But
Yeah.
it is about shifting.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. So let's jump into our topic here. This is going to be a core of what we're going to talk about. This is around facilitation and coaching, and we're going to touch a few other areas. So let's just start with the facilitation topic. So you are a facilitation enthusiast. You love facilitation and teaching facilitation, and I've seen you facilitate great trainings, learning workshops, meetings. So, what is facilitation? What does facilitation bring? And why is it important? So, if you can
Yeah.
share with us.
Yeah, I like shifting what people think about facilitation or don't think
Mm-hmm.
about facilitation.
Mm-hmm.
It so leading meetings, leading classes, being in a group of people where someone is in the front of the room,
Mm-hmm.
directing the room, is a pattern that we've all seen all of our lives and
Yes.
done to different degrees. But oftentimes we take on what's been modeled for us without any intentional use. And so we
Mm-hmm.
forget that or we don't even take the time to back up and say, hey, how could we do this better? So even
Right.
when you say I'm passionate about facilitation, I'm like, am I?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
passionate about people understanding that you can do it better and that you have a bigger impact if you facilitate appropriately. Like
Mm-hmm.
really doing it in a way that leaves room for, facilitation is a practice that enables the group to really get to the outcome that they need to get to
Mm-hmm.
by showing up and leading them through a process, potentially through some
Mm-hmm.
structured activities, some structured being. It's being
Mm-hmm.
planful and being ready for that. Not necessarily, not you. Actually, you kind of have to leave your expertise at the door. If you are an expert, it sometimes
Mm-hmm.
gets in the way. So, like leaving that aside a little bit and really leading the room in the flow and process of it in order to
Mm-hmm.
get to a certain outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you said some really powerful stuff. And one of the things that I want to talk about is you talked about modeling, like what has been modeled for us, where we come from, which is like traditional school or like a workshop where we've seen one person come in and like deliver their amazing knowledge, or we've seen a lot of like actually training or teaching, right?
Yeah.
Um, and even when Scrum Masters think about it, like it's about imparting Scrum knowledge and enlightening the team. So a lot of the audience are come from that background, right? And I came from that background, and I've had multiple conversations about that. So um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because what you're bringing up for me, it might be a little bit of a tangent, but the difference between the word facilitation and the word facilitator. And
uh-huh.
I spent about 5 years in a data warehousing group, and
Yeah.
those people can spend those people. Data warehousing experts have a lot of focus on words, and I like to say that I don't think that way, but sometimes words matter. And
Yeah.
being an agile facilitator, like thinking of that more in the broader terms and thinking of it differently, that's probably somewhere I get more passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, one of the skills I need is facilitation.
Right.
And in that, I might have lost your question a little bit, but like, one of the big things that jumped to my mind is how important both things are.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, let's just kind of go into like agile team facilitation. I introduced the word Scrum Master, but you're more passionate about talking about agile team facilitation, and
Or an
you can
agile
explain.
facilitator. I'll go back and forth. One, because people are pretty comfortable with the Scrum Master term, but I like agile facilitator, or a lot of times within clients I'll use agile coach because they call that center, even that first level, an agile coach is,
Mm-hmm.
but an agile team facilitator, because Scrum is only one of the many good ways of doing agile, and
Right.
so it really is interchangeable. So in this conversation, we'll use
Yeah.
both terms, but I think Scrum Master assumes